This episode of the CUInsight Experience podcast is sponsored by Alacrity, a leading payments fintech helping credit unions modernize money movement. Alacrity enables real-time money movement experiences for loan payments, A2A transfers, digital disbursements, and bill pay. Through a single cloud-native platform that connects to RTP, FedNow, FedWire, ACH, Visa Direct, and Zelle, credit unions can progressively modernize without overhauling legacy systems. Learn more at alacrity.com.
Welcome back to the CUInsight Experience. I'm Randy Smith, one of the co-founders of CUInsight.com, and I'm here with my co-host, my partner in podcasting in life, Jilly Nowacki.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jilly Nowacki, founder and CEO of Humanidei. And today's conversation is one I'm especially excited about because it's not about tactics or titles. It's about identity.
Yeah, it's about becoming the kind of leader you're proud of, not the version that looks good on paper, but the one that feels right when the decisions are hard, the pressure is real, and the answers aren't always obvious.
Our guest today is someone who leads with a strong sense of self, clear personal standards, and a deep commitment to authenticity.
We are thrilled to welcome back to the show Tansley Stearns. First time with Jill. No, we did one before, didn't we?
No,
this is first time with Tansley. All right. The president and CEO of Orsa Credit Union in Michigan. Brand new name, brand new brand. Beautiful. Tansley, welcome back to the CUInsight Experience.
Thrilled to be here. Thanks, friends.
So much fun. Just to set the stage a little bit, Tansley, we want to talk about becoming the leader you're proud of. How identity shapes leadership style, the standards you hold yourself to, which we know are high, and how leaders grow into authenticity over time. We were kind of talking about that before we hit record a little bit. So,
and this isn't just about where you are today, but also how you got there. So the moments, the influences, and the choices you've made that have really helped shape who you've become as a leader.
So the first question, if we kind of go back, like maybe not all the way back to the beginning, but was there a time where you kind of felt like, oh, this is the kind of leader I am? And it might have been before the title even, where you were like, no, this is me.
Yeah, I think it's evolved, and I think it's still evolving. What I do remember vividly, though, during COVID was being able to put language to it. And what I talk about with my teams is this idea of cushions and wings. And I tell this story during our new employee orientation, which is about the fact that I was at Canvas at the time. We had a team member who put in her resignation, and she was a super talented person, really committed to the organization, high performing. We hoped that this person would stay a very long time. And so I was super surprised. So I asked permission to talk to this person, find out what was happening, permission granted. What I learned is that there was a lot happening outside of work that was having a negative impact on work. And I asked some questions around, gosh, could we make accommodations? Could we find a way that this works for you and for us? And also, why didn't you tell us?
Before, right?
Yeah. And what I learned is this person was super concerned about putting pressure on people that they cared about in the workplace. And it led me to this idea of language around something that had been spooling in my head, which is I'd failed on the cushions part of this because this person didn't have enough trust that we would protect colleagues, ensure that this would go okay. It was something I'd missed. And then this idea of wings is that if we can do cushions well, right? If we can really care when we ask somebody how they're doing, that we don't just walk away, that we are paying attention to signals that I didn't see in this instance, that allows us to have people spread their wings. And I think a lot of organizations do the wings part well, is about stretching yourself and innovation and knowing you can skin your knees. If you don't do the cushions part well, I think it can be really harmful to human beings. So I think that coupling really matters.
How did you activate that into behaviors, or what are some changes that you made when you came to that? I'm a words person too.
Yes,
and so you get the language and then I think the language can help you shape the behaviors.
Yes.
So what are some behaviors that came after that too?
Yeah, it was really about intentionality. One of the foibles of me, and there are many, is that I am so committed to work and I'm so committed to the outcomes of credit unions. And it means a lot to me. And my behaviors in that passion have often signaled to people that I don't care about them. And the intentionality of ensuring that people know that I'm talking more about that my behaviors are sometimes very uncomfortable for me because I would rather race forward than hit pause. And sometimes hitting pause is the right thing for other people. And also that can't mean I'm going to be untrue to myself. And so some of it, Jill, is really about the conversation of that, which is you're going to see some things in me that may not be the things that you wish to do. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to ask you to change who you are. And we're going to respect each other. And I think being able to talk about that is a critical part of it.
Are there parts of yourself that maybe you used to feel that pressure to kind of tone down or hide that now you don't with that?
So many. We'll start with my laugh, right? I mean, I used to swallow my laugh for years and years and years. And even just this week, somebody said, I knew you were in the room because of that laugh. And I was like,
I just knew where to go because of his laugh.
You get that too.
And I have to tell you, that seems really small. It's a very big deal because it's fundamental to who I am. I love to have fun. I think joy really matters in our lives. And swallowing your laugh is not great. And so that's one. I also think demonstrating emotion. My schooling through credit unions included my former CEO saying things to me like, there's no crying in credit unions. And I know what he meant.
Have you ever been to DE?
Yes. And, I was very disciplined about that. I can count on one hand the number of times I've had a tear that was public in a credit union. And that's not necessarily who I am. I have a lot of emotion. I express that emotion and I've been very toned down in that. I also think my audacity is something that I've leaned into a lot. It is something people poke at me for. And when I talk about impossible dreams, people want to tell me how silly that is. And there was a long time when I didn't talk about that. And so I think I've genuinely been who I am. And there were a lot of masks that I put on for a lot of years that I don't wear anymore.
So how have you changed as you let those masks down then over the last few years?
I think I'm a way more effective leader. I think one of the things that was really dangerous about those masks in combination with how hard I work is that people amplified how uncaring they believed me to be. Because I think there was a little bit of thinking I was fake and then working that hard. And I don't think people believe that I was a real human being. And that's dangerous. Yeah. It's really dangerous.
Well, you weren't showing that one side of you, right?
Yeah. And that's also exhausting. You think about the energy that you put into being something that isn't quite genuine. And that's not great. The other thing that I would say is that as a senior leader, and particularly as a CEO, people are paying much more attention than you wish to believe about your behavior. And we care deeply at Orsa about people showing up as who they are. I want them to be able to do that. So that has to start with me.
We talk a lot about like personal standards on the show, that kind of internal bar we hold ourselves to. And known you for years, and I know you hold yourself to a very high bar. Regardless of circumstance, like what are the personal standards that you have that kind of guide how you lead people as well?
Yeah. My personal standards are very high. And I think they're high for performance. They're also really high for how we treat one another. And I do think that is critically important. We talk a lot at Orsa about the fact that we can't have brilliant jerks. And I've spent a lot of my career.
One of my favorites. When we're recruiting, I'm like, brilliant jerks need not apply.
Because I listened to leaders for years and years excuse very bad behavior that harmed individuals because we had brilliant people on the team. And gosh, we could never find somebody that's that brilliant that was also kind and generous. Well, yes, we can. And we will. And, we work too hard. And quite frankly, this is such a human-centered business that we've got to treat each other well. It's got to be core to who we are. And that, again, has to start with me. I can't expect that we're going to do that if I'm not going to do that.
You can't be the brilliant jerk either, right?
No way. No way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have those standards ever cost you something?
Yeah. They've cost me a lot. They've cost me personal relationships for sure. I think they've also cost me mental health.
Yeah.
And And I've had to really learn what are the things that what are the things I'm willing to let go of and what are the things that I'm not going to. The other thing is this, I had so much mental wrangling with what I believe to be those standards are and people telling me they shouldn't be those standards. And I do think one of the things that has been true for me over the last 5 or 6 years is I'm going to keep those standards. Other people don't have to like them. They don't have to be part of it. And that's okay. And we can agree to disagree. But I'm also not going to become someone else to have people feel better about my standards.
Yeah. And that's your standards. We got you where you are today, right? Like, then to go, let me give those up.
Yeah. I've had 2 points in my career and, decades apart where the first time there was a conversation and it was like a team feedback session and it was sometimes your expectations are just too high.
Yeah.
And it's like, but don't you want to be excellent? And then, and the person somebody was giving me feedback about the feedback. And she said, your expectations are higher than anyone I've ever worked with. And it makes me believe in myself more. And so it was kind of like, okay, I do have one person on the team who's saying, oh, that's too much. But I have somebody else saying, hey, because of that, here's what I can do now. So being able to say, ooh, I'm going to hold on to these because they actually do work.
Yes.
like that is what's gotten me where I am from that side of it too.
Yeah. And I think it ultimately is about finding the organizations and spaces and rooms where people want that, and it's okay if I'm not in every room. And I'm a people pleaser by nature. So that's been very, very difficult for me to let go of. And it's a really important part of me being whole.
So when you reflect on who you are as a leader today, what qualities in yourself are you most proud of?
I'm really proud of the fact that I do think that my aspirational thinking, which I credit my parents with, gives people permission to see something in themselves and in the world that they wouldn't have seen otherwise. And I've seen people thrive in that way. And I care so deeply about human beings making a difference in the world and finding things that bring them joy. And that impact is everything to me. So that's probably the thing I'm most proud of.
Is there anything you're proud of that was harder to develop?
All of it was hard. And I think that was, right? Because I spent years where I would say things, I remember vividly, again, my first CEO, he used to call me the pest and he meant it in a very kind way. And it was me coming with bigger and bolder ideas and him saying no, and then no the second time. And by the third time, oh, that's sort of interesting.
Let's look at that.
And so I think the bravery to lean into that more fully was hard earned.
Yeah, that just made me kind of giggle and laugh because when Lauren was our CEO, I told her in the beginning, I'm like, if you're bringing big ideas, you should probably tease them to us first.
Yeah. Drip.
And I'm like, and then the second time, give us a little bit more. And by the third time, we're going to be like, I thought we were already doing that.
Yes.
What happened?
Wasn't that my idea?
I love that thing.
And she successfully did that for 5 years. So
the other thing I will say to you that I'm really proud of is I'm very good at saying hard things to people and looking them in the eye and doing that. And that I couldn't have done even 10 years ago.
That's tough.
That
That's very
takes
tough.
so much courage. And so many of us have read Brené Brown and we know that clear is kind but knowing and doing are not always the same.
No.
And sometimes too, because we know what that hard message is, we're like, okay. And then we walk away thinking we did such a great job delivering the hard news. And they're like, boy, that was sure nice of Tansley to stop in and say, hey. Yes. And it's like, oh, I thought I gave you really good feedback. Right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Clarity is a good thing, but often tough. So we've all been around this space and around each other for many years now.
Yes.
We're going decades. So
it's we have an adorable picture of the three of us actually in like Mystic, Connecticut together.
Yes.
When you both came and spoke at my league annual meeting. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was pre us. That's amazing. So like none of us got here alone, right? And we've been, I think all three of us would say we've been so fortunate in this space to be surrounded by amazing people who have been so willing to help lift us up. When you think back on like the biggest influence that helped kind of shape your leadership identity? What did they teach you, whether that was intentional or unintentional, like along the way?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the gift of my time at Canvas really was about this opportunity to truly show up as who I was. And I think my time at Feline was awesome because it gave me exposure across the industry in a way that you can't really get anyplace else. And the polish to show up in so many different rooms with so many different perspectives, I do think made me a bit more chameleon-like. And so the time at Canvas, I think, really allowed me to show up as who I was and be less of a chameleon. And I think that was really marking for me. And I think the opportunity to have people in my life who've been really hard on me. I think my best mentors have been really clear when I suck at things.
we need that. Sure.
And they've built the cushion, right? Because what I can say is that I can go back with many examples where I was getting feedback that I really needed, I really didn't want to hear. It broke me at times. I had to go cry about it. And then I was better for it. I was only able to hear it though because they cared and they built years of commitment and knowing that I could trust them and that they weren't trying to hurt me. And as a perfectionist, I hate hearing that I suck at things.
Probably drives you to get better at it.
I think that's such an important point of clarity, though, this idea of like, not all feedback is created equal. So
no question.
If someone we don't really know, like walks by and is like, well, Tansley, here's my opinion of you. That is so much different than if it's someone who knows you and sees you and knows what drives you and knows like what you actually care about.
Yes.
If somebody comes up to you and is like, well, you're not good at doing this thing. And it's like, well, you don't even know what I'm trying to accomplish. And like, that's such a different. And so having that gift of people who you trust, who will give you that real, clear, candid feedback is so nice. Like, doesn't feel nice in the moment, maybe, but so helpful on that side of it.
Well, and Jill, I think what's interesting is so Randy Harrington is my coach and he's given me so many gifts, and he's the first person who ever said that to me because I was talking about something that someone was suggesting or saying I needed to improve upon. And he was like, you don't have to listen to everybody. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, yes, I do. Really?
Did you know who I am?
And it's been really important to know that. And I don't know why I didn't understand that until then. And it's certainly changed the way I receive some things that I don't need.
I do think that's such an important thing because it's so often easy to focus on the squeaky wheel, right? And if the squeaky wheel doesn't, like you say, know the organization, know whatever, they're just talking to be heard. To me, that feedback doesn't have to weigh as much as somebody who knows you, trusts you, you trust, they give you the feedback and you're like, oh, wait, this one I should take, right? Yeah, absolutely.
How has the role of mentors or of those people you've worked with who've helped kind of shape your leadership identity, how has that impacted the way you shape leaders today?
One, it makes me really driven to make sure I show up in that way because it has changed my life. There's absolutely no question it has changed my life. And so I believe it's a responsibility. It's also something I saw my mother doing regularly with students, with other teachers. When she retired and flunked out of retirement, she was doing it as a consultant. And I just think as human beings, we need each other. And of all the things that I hope I leave behind, one of them is that people feel like I showed up for them and helped walk with them.
When we were putting this together and I saw this question, I was so interested around the conversation about this. And we're recording this at CUIsymposium. So there's a lot of friends that we've known for many years in the industry. And multiple times these past few days, I've kind of had this kind of looked around and I'm like, wow, our people that we've become friends with and who I think were mentors to a lot of us, or at least, those kind of guiding figures in our space, are winning the Lifetime Achievement Awards. They're discussing their retirements. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, so the people that are Sierra on your team's age are looking at us the same way that we looked at the Mike Valentines and the Bill Cheneys. And it's a wild thing. I don't know why this time it's like hitting me. Maybe I'm just like, oh, getting old.
Randy's struggling to grow up.
I don't want to grow up. Still in flip-flops and don't want to grow up. It's fascinating to me. I'm just like, yeah. So I think that idea of like not only all those gifts that we've taken from people that have been willing to invest in us. We are at a point, you're the CEO of a large organization right now. You work with all kinds of people and that are going to be that next generation of CEOs in our space. And I think that's a responsibility and something that is interesting. And I do come back to, and I think, I don't know if we were talking about it with Scott Simpson recently, but it was this idea that all of these people that have had this space in our industry, when they talk about their career, it's always about the people. It's never about the asset growth of the credit union. It's always about the people that they got to do this thing with and who they brought up. So I find that fascinating. I think I had a question there.
No,
just rambled.
Okay.
Yeah.
We told Tansley it'd be a dialogue, and then we've just been hitting her with all the hard questions.
All the hard
it was good. That's kind of from that perspective. That is as you kind of regroup on what question you'd like to ask next. I just reflect a little bit on that. I appreciate so much, Tansley, that you're saying, hey, I need to make sure I'm showing up for people. I think there is this moment where, we heard Randy just now struggle with him becoming an adult in the industry. And there is that point where we can probably think back to, like, I will always remember the time as a new league president when Mike Valentine welcomed me into this room that I had never been in before, and how much it was like, oh, I do belong here and I am okay in this room. And so do people recognize when they become that generation that is the one that is meant to welcome and bring along that next? And so that commitment to being like, oh, I better make sure I'm showing up, because somebody might look at me the way I looked at one of those leaders who welcomed me in and brought me into that too.
No doubt. Also, I do think there's a responsibility as a woman to show up for other women. And I'm a big believer that we've got work to do here. And it is not just about them seeing that I earned the opportunity. It is about helping create space so that if other women want to be CEOs or take on other leadership roles, that they have somebody walking with them. Because unfortunately, there were a lot of people that didn't do that with me and that chose not to. And we have so much work to do to make sure that people have as much cushion as possible as women to live whatever dream you wish to live. And I hold that very dear.
I'm super excited for your Herd event this year too. And I am less excited about the kind of recent women in the workplace numbers going backwards and so yes, we have a lot of work to do. And now we have more work to do today than we did 2 years ago too.
We do.
So
we do. Yeah. And that work is something we have to be impatient about and continue to raise as something we all have responsibility in. It's not enough to say, well, you got the seat now, so everything's cool, right? Because I do have a lot of people when I talk about this say, what are you talking about? You got the seat, so there's not anything else to say anymore.
I love that expression. Work we have to be impatient about.
That was great. I feel like that might be the tagline out of this one, John. So we've touched on this a little bit, but I think it's really important for the future leaders and the leaders that are listening. But I think we all struggle a little bit with authenticity in the beginning. And part of that might just be we don't know who we are.
And sometimes throughout.
Right? Yeah. But I think a lot, it was like, you better learn to play golf. You better, we should dress a certain way. We should, it was all of that trying to fit into the mold of the rooms that we were trying to get into, right? Like how we're supposed to do things. So as you're growing as a leader over time and more authentically, were there things you had to unlearn along the way?
Mm-hmm. People pleasing.
Yeah, right. Back to that, yeah.
I hate to say that again. And I do think it is one of the things that held me back so much. I also think figuring out, I know people tire of me talking about brand, and I do think it connects to this topic because I think there was a first half of my career where my brand was the brand of the leader ahead of me instead of who I am. And I do think the personal brand of a leader is one of the ways that you demonstrate your authenticity. And So finding my own style, even my hair, right? For years and years and years, I didn't feel good at work unless I was straightening my hair. And that sounds so silly and small. My hair's naturally curly, and especially in the Midwest in the summer, it's really hard for it to be straight.
Curly, right?
And what's interesting is you wouldn't believe how many people will still comment on my hair. And now it's just become this thing where it's sort of fun for me to wear it any which way, because if I've been wearing it curly and I wear it straight, people are going to be curious about that and vice versa. And so I think understanding how you start to build your own brand that is about you is a part of, it's not all of, it is a part of how you show up authentically. And it took me a long time to learn that.
Yeah. How do you know, what is the evidence of you being in alignment now? How does it feel? How does it look? How do you know?
Yeah. What I know is that for years I felt really tired at the end of the day. And I'm not saying I don't feel tired now. I am saying that 50% of that exhaustion was what I'd been putting on and how heavy masks are. The way I feel in a room now is not a lot different than how I feel at home. And I don't know how you measure that, Jill. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question exactly.
Yeah.
It is how I feel. And what I would say is a measure is I know for certain that the interactions I have with people are more authentic. I think people believe me more. And I know that how I show up as a leader is more genuine and allows me to perform better.
I like that particular question because we do a lot of work in coaching with values alignment and what are your personal values and can you bring those to work? And based on a lot you've said, it wouldn't surprise me if we share this value, but it took me a while to define it. And I've come to a real point of clarity that my two are joy and growth. And so if I'm in spaces where I feel like I can't grow, I can't evolve, I can't and have fun while doing it.
Yes.
I can feel that lack of alignment. And so there are times where I'll end up sort of bouncing from one thing to another and it feels more task oriented than really growth oriented. And he can tell because I'll be I'm not sleeping as well. I don't feel as good. I'm
lose the joy.
Yeah. And because the joy drops a lot when the growth isn't there. And that key of if I'm feeling this way, I can usually go ahead and audit where's the alignment with values. And if it's not there, it's pretty easy to identify that that's why too.
And then it takes some time to switch.
Right.
We have commitments and you have to go through the commitments. And right?
Yeah.
You're I agreed to that already. Okay. So the one thing I do want to, I guess, throw out there before we kind of wrap this thing up is I'll throw this to both of you. For that person who wants to maybe not only become the CEO, but they're looking at they'd like to be in the C-suite someday. And, they want to lead people because being a leader is showing up in many different ways. And I think sometimes leading and managing gets confused. And I know I'm a terrible manager. So it's
self-awareness is key.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that Jill and I talk often about knowing your values and being authentic to ourselves. And sometimes we see people that we are friends with that are struggling and we're like, but why are they doing that? Why aren't they changing? So my assumption is there are a bunch of people that are out there listening that are like, okay, I want a leadership role. I feel I'm ready. I feel I deserve it. I don't know if deserve is the right word. They might feel that way, but they want it. What advice would you give kind of them as, if you want to say, parting shots?
You want to go first or second, Tansley?
You go first.
Okay. So hopefully I don't steal yours because I am going to borrow from some conversation you were having as we talked in this idea of, so I think the advice that I would give somebody is that make sure you genuinely care about people. Because if you are trying to move into a leadership role, the motive that should carry you there needs to be that genuine care for others. And Tansley, as you were talking earlier, one of the traits you said that you're really proud of is kind of that drive, that willingness to show up. And you also said that you had to give up the people-pleasing side of it. And I think that where we can sometimes get confused is we can mistake people pleasing with that genuine care for others. Nobody becomes a people pleaser for the wrong reasons, right? It's like we want to,
Yes.
but the impact of it is so different. Like if I'm behaving because I want you to like me,
Yes.
rather than I'm behaving because I genuinely care about your well-being, different choices are made. I can have that hard conversation with you if I genuinely care about you more easily than I can if I want you to like me. And so that long-winded way to get to it, but summary, I think the advice I would give is make sure you genuinely care about those people you want to be in the leadership role over, because leadership is all about the people.
No doubt. The two things I would say, one is you have to be willing to wallow in some seasons that won't bring you joy. The journey to this seat was not paved with every day feeling like I loved everything I was doing. And sometimes it was about sitting through that. Sometimes it was about enduring that. Sometimes it was about knowing when to stop enduring that. And I think there's a lot of impatience that I understand and I felt about, gosh, I should be there now. I want to be there now. It's awful that I'm not there now. And sometimes wearing those other hats is really, really important to finding your way to that seat. The other thing that I would say is really tied, Jill, to the value you mentioned, which is growth. Both my therapist and my coach have helped me be the person that I am today, and the commitment to continuing to grow. And I know for some people that's going to feel woo-woo. Listen, when we talk about power skills, which is how I would describe them, they're the hardest things we do as human beings. As human beings, we feel things we don't want to feel. It's bad days we don't want to walk through, and getting better at that and having people that help you do that, honestly, is so important to being the leader that I want to be.
So kind of as a last sort of quick reflection on this to close us off, just give the first thing that comes to mind. And Randy, I'm going to make you do this one too, because you gave me the chance to give the leadership advice. So just a fill in the blank. Okay. The standard you refuse to compromise is?
Probably integrity.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. All right.
Empathy.
Nice. I like that one. That's a good one too.
Better.
All right. And then, okay. All right. One more.
Wait, what about you?
Oh, wait, what? Me? Oh,
Yeah.
The standard I refuse to compromise is, I'm going to say joy on this, but I'm going to also say it doesn't mean toxic positivity.
No.
And it doesn't mean I never have a bad day, but like, I got to feel joy about what it is I'm doing and where it is I am. So I'll go with that one.
Yeah.
How about the leader you're still becoming is?
Evolving.
Curious.
Oh.
Kind to myself.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
I like that one a lot.
I do think that it's such an interesting thing. And I know we've all had these kind of conversations, but that idea that like we know more of what we don't know the older we get. So that as having growth mindsets, it's a beautiful thing to be able to learn more stuff. So.
Thank goodness.
Right? Yes. It would be boring without. I mean, good. So anyways, Tansley, this has been so much fun. We knew it would be. Thanks for having this thoughtful conversation with us and sharing not just, what you do, but who you are as a leader.
Yeah. And thank you for the way you show up. I think a lot of listeners are going to feel both encouraged and challenged by this conversation that we've had today. And I'm super excited to hear their feedback on it too.
Awesome. Thank you, friends, for the opportunity.
To all our listeners, thank you for listening and spending time with us today.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Share it with a colleague and join us next time on the CUInsight Experience. We'll be back soon with more conversations to help you lead with clarity, confidence, and purpose.
Until then, take care, be well, and we will see you next time.
Thanks again to Alacrity for sponsoring this episode of the CUInsight Experience podcast. To find out more about Alacrity, visit alacrity.com.